What's up, everybody? It's Stephen Pacheco, also known as Steph the Pharaoh. Today, I'm here with my brother, Alex Cruz. We got quite an insightful episode here for you today. Alex Cruz is a Marine veteran. He's also a business owner. He owns Rival Cleaning Service out here in Visalia, California. I'm excited because we've been trying to get this interview for quite some time, probably going on about a year now?
Yeah, man.
To get this interview. I mean, a lot of life has happened, a lot of things have transpired, so it's a good thing that I had you wait, because on top of that, we've been able to do business together and build and grow, and on top of that, you have a fight coming up, right?
Yeah.
August 13th at the Rawhide Stadium, which we'll get into. Alex does it all. He's a man on a mission. He has a powerful testimonial that we'll get into. But Alex, one of the big reasons I wanted to bring you on, brother, I mean, we're in alignment completely. You have a lot of the same core values that I have. You like to create win-win scenarios with everybody. So tell me a little bit. I know you're not from West Coast. We had this conversation just now. You're from the East Coast, but what brought you over here to the West Coast?
Well, I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey. I moved around a lot. So between New York, Connecticut, Puerto Rico, just lived a crazy lifestyle, man. I was in foster care until I was 1, and then my aunt raised me until I was 5. And at 5, that's when I went back to living with my parents.
Okay. Did you have like any siblings around that time, like in foster care, or with you, or were you just kind of by yourself?
Yeah, so I have 2 siblings. I have 2 older sisters, so I'm the baby.
Okay.
So I grew up around a lot of girls.
All right. Yeah. So it's not every day somebody is, they break the mold, right? Like that's one of the biggest things. Like you broke past being a statistic. You're not one of them. And I would have never known if you hadn't told me of this situation, how you kind of grew up. But like, what did that do to you early on? Because you're in the life of an entrepreneur now, and that's a bag of tricks in and of itself, right? There's so much pros and cons, with the time freedom and everything else. But like back then when you were in the system and you were, in that situation, like how did you view life? Like, because I would imagine it shaped you into who you are today to an extent.
During that time, I don't really remember a lot. The only thing I really remember was my aunt was really strict. And so with her being strict, my sister was about 8 years old at the time, and she just kept telling her, I miss my mom, I miss my dad. Wow. She wanted to visit my mom and dad, and I guess at that point, finally my aunt was like, you know what, you could go back with your parents, and so at 5 years old, we packed up and we went back to New York, back to Jersey.
Shoot. So, that situation probably caused it. Do you feel like it caused any trauma for you, like early on, or did you just not really know what was going on?
Well, it kind of did, because the way that I got into foster care was because I got burned by my babysitter. So they took me away from my parents because my parents were out or something like that, and my babysitter burned me with hot water in the tub. So I had burns around my body. So CPS came and they took us. And then my aunt, my mom's sister, she took custody of us.
Oh shoot! So you were there for how long? How long did that?
In foster care?
Yeah.
I was about 8 months, 9 months. So I wasn't there too long in the system. Thank God I wasn't. I was grateful that my aunt took custody of us, because I don't know where I would be at today, but I still had a bumpy road. Not saying that it was easy.
Yeah, for sure. And so you're out of the system now, right? You were only in foster care for a little bit. What transcribed during that period of time? Did you already move to over here, like California, or?
No, we went back to New York. My parents at the time lived back in Brooklyn in New York. And so I ended up back with my parents. And so I grew up between there and Jersey and Puerto Rico. So
Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So my parents are Puerto Rican descendants. So.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yeah. So out here in the valley, they call me a tropical Mexican because there's not many of us out here. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. It's not every day you meet somebody from Puerto Rico. So side note, one of the companies that I'm partnering with for solar, we actually just opened in Puerto Rico. So if you know anybody, hey, we could do business together that way.
For sure. Always an opportunity, man. So yeah, so I moved back with my parents, and then that's when the rude awakening happened, man. And I remember, I would cry all the time because I wanted to go back with my aunt. I didn't care she was strict, and later on you'll understand why I didn't care she was strict.
Okay.
And so I went back with my parents, and that was the first time I ever got a glimpse of what my father was like. My father was like a raging alcoholic, in and out of prison.
Dang.
My mom didn't work. Every chance that my dad got, he would beat my mom. He would beat us verbally, abuse us. So it was rough, man. And then not only that, like, I was weak. There was like a lot of drama going on in my house. Like, I got picked on in school. It's like everybody has a story, man. And part of my story, I got bullied, man. I got bullied growing up.
Seriously, I think that's like a testament to any young man, regardless of stature, size, whatever. Like, I think we can say, 9 times out of 10, most, young men get bullied. I know I experienced it, and then it kind of like, they say hurt people. So I realized, like, as I got older, I kind of played into that too. And that's why nowadays I don't stand for stuff like that, because I'm like, man, I know the type of mindset you have to be in to condone that or to let it kind of slide. And so it's unfortunate, but no, that's crazy, man. I would have never known that, Yeah. Were you were never as big like you are now?
No, man. Actually, I was puny, man. I was a skinny little kid. Like, people thought my parents didn't feed me.
No way.
But little did they know my mom couldn't get me out the refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? When we had food,
Yeah.
That was another thing, is like when my dad was in prison, like, we really didn't have anything because he was the head of the household, man. He was the one bringing in the money,
So you said, I'm sorry, did you say he went to prison?
Yeah.
So when was this in the timeline? So you got to experience him being an alcoholic? Did something transpire?
Yeah, I remember I remember multiple times that I would go visit him, at the county jail or prison,
Wow.
And, I can honestly say I knew he was everybody has a reason why, they are the way they are. Mm-hmm. Some of us use that abuse, that past abuse, to be destructive. Some of us use it to in a positive way, and
That's
my
facts.
dad just decided to use it in a destructive way.
He probably didn't see any like white light to help him change or something like that. Yeah, that's interesting. So, on top of that, did you not do did it scare you to drink like in your younger years?
Oh yeah, man. In my teen years, I really didn't drink. I really didn't touch no drugs or anything. My dad did drugs too. He would do drugs in front of me. He didn't care, man. He would be with other women in front of me. And if I told my mom, he would whoop me, and he would tell me that, I'd probably grow up to be a faggot because, I was, men don't snitch, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And
part of that stigma.
Part of that machismo stigma, And, my mom suffered a lot of abuse. My sisters suffer a lot of abuse, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like my sister and I, my older sister, we would always have this battle, because she would always say, even till this day, she'll be like, I had it worse because I was the oldest. And I'm like, no, man, I had it worse because I was the youngest, I was a boy. And not only that, my mom was worried about my sister that's my middle sister, right? Because she would get convulsions, and then my older sister would get treated good because she was the firstborn by my dad. So I was always pushed to the side. So what did that do to me? I started hanging out on the streets and doing street things. You
started trying to fill that void from
void, exactly. I was like, if I wasn't gonna get love at home, I might as well be out in the streets, where I thought at the time, people they had my back, they loved me. You know what I'm saying? But it was better than being at home. And the crazy part about it too was my mom didn't let me out as much. I would have to you know, back east we have fire escapes, so I would have to jump out the window, go down the fire escape, jump a couple backyards to freaking go hang out with the boys. You know,
so it was a mission to like.
So
Mission
yeah, it was
Impossible.
a mission, and then guess what? I came home and I got my ass beat. You know.
Wow. And at that time, like, you probably didn't see. You didn't see anything wrong with it? Like,
No, I didn't. I'm honestly, I didn't care. You know what I'm saying? And I did anything and everything to not be home.
I feel like that's what, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I think that's what a lot of the younger generation, even we were once a younger generation, but I think everybody goes through like that pivotal point of the family dynamic and maybe not having that. I know I wasn't, you know, to that extent, but I can see how it played a role in my life. But it's cool that you have the self-awareness now to identify that and to reflect on that, because not everybody grows up. Time doesn't make everybody grow up. You know, people can still be stuck in that mindset.
No, absolutely.
But for you to identify that and propel and to grow into who you are today, like, I would have never known all this. And I think it's cool and it's admirable that you're mentioning all this, because if you're out there and you're listening to this, whether you be 18 to 30 or even in your 40s, it's never too late to change. And that's one of the things that I like talking about. You and we always have these conversations about growth and, and how, like, we're not trees, we're not, you know, meant to be planted. So following that, you know, topic of you were a kid in your adolescence and you were just out there doing your thing, at what point, so you were still in the East Coast, when did you move over here to the Valley? Or more so like to California?
I got to California in early 08. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2007.
Okay.
And the reason why I joined the Marine Corps was because I just got tired of family members and friends like, hey, you're never going to make it to 18, 21. You're going to be dead or in jail. You know, I was doing hood rat stuff.
Because you were out in the street.
Because I was out in the street. And during that time, you know, I had a full-time job. I got kicked out of 3 different high schools. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I ended up in night school. And so a situation happened where, you know, with gang affiliation and whatnot, and, you know, my life was threatened. So I took action. And so because of that situation, I had dropped out of school and just focused on working. And I remember, you know, having a conversation with my sister. And I was living with her at the time. I left my house at about 15 when I came back from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
I was out there. My mom sent me out there. My dad was locked up. She sent me out there because she couldn't deal with me. And then...
So it was meant to be like a safe haven, like get you out of...
it was supposed to be. But little did she know was when I was out there and I was going to high school, everybody hated on me. You know, because I'm
from America.
Because I'm from back east. Although Puerto Rico is a territory, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still out there. I'm still a gringo.
Oh,
Wow. You know what I'm saying? No, you laugh, but it's
you can't escape that stigma.
You can't escape that stigma. It's like you're not Puerto Rican because you weren't born here. Wow. You know what I mean? So adversity, right? So I'm in this new high school, and if you know anything about like high schools in other Spanish cultures,
I don't.
Sometimes, you know, you have your morning and you have your afternoon. So you go in at like, so I was afternoon.
Okay.
So I go in at like 2 to 6, 1 to 6 or something like that for high school. And, you know, people hated on me because I played basketball. You know what I mean? I played basketball. I was point guard. And not only that, I wore Jordans. I wore expensive clothes, man.
Stuff.
I worked hard. Yeah, I've been working since I was 9 years old, man. I've been hustling since I was 9. I held a hammer at 9 years old, you know. And since then, I've been grinding. So when I was in Puerto Rico, you got Mexican culture, they call it the remate. So I worked at a pulguero, which is like a remate. So I linked up with my aunt's boss. He was also from New York, and he would come back to New York and he would buy Echo, Bebe, Jordans, like knockoff, right? And we would sell it at these remates in Puerto Rico, and I would make money. And so I would go to school all like, you know, fly. Yeah. And so they didn't like that. And then not only that, now is the same thing as back home. You're fighting because you're from this hood. You're fighting because you're from that hood. So like I said in the past, I got bullied a lot, man. And you know, when I was living and going to high school in Jersey, And middle school, we finally moved back to Jersey City, and my cousins moved. I was about probably like 12, 13. They moved to Jersey City. My uncle bought a house, and they're all boxers. I come from a family with a lot of boxers. You know,
that explains a lot.
Yeah. So I used to train at Rocky Montiano when I was younger in Jersey, in downtown Jersey City, and my cousins, they just started beating me up. They're like, "Hey, you can't take this. You can't take this crap from no one." So and then now my fight game's up. My street game, like fight games up. So the same thing in Puerto Rico. I wouldn't let nobody. I was over it. I was tired of it. So I was.
You'd fight back.
I was fighting back. So and it got to the point where I could count on my hand, not counting MMA. I could count on my hand how many times I had a fair fight. Every other time I got jumped.
That tends to be like what happens in any altercation that's not, doesn't have restrictions, right? Like in any street scenario, like they tell us in jiu-jitsu, the best thing to do in a street fight is like walk away, because it's never going to be fair, right? Like
exactly.
It's unfortunately, we're just in that kind of environment. We're in that world where people feel the need to like jump people, and I understand.
Yeah.
I've been in situations like that, unfortunately.
No, absolutely. So going back to like me coming out to Cali, so I joined the Marine Corps. So I vividly remember that, I had this conversation with my sister. We were arguing, and I was like, I can't do this no more. It's because I didn't really get along with my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Me and him always would find a reason to end up almost scrapping.
And this was your older sister, right?
This is my older sister. So I remember I went to my cousin's house, and he was always in ROTC. And it was that Marine Corps poster, like just the gunny just pointing at you, you know what I'm saying? And I looked at the poster, and I just stood there, and he was like, "What's up, cuz?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing, bro. Like, what we're gonna do today?" Like, because he was working with me at the time. I got him a job where I was working at. And so I looked at that poster, and I was like, I'm gonna join the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So the next day I went to the recruiting office, and I go tell the recruiter, I was like, "Hey, I want to be a Marine." And he was like, "Oh, what MOS?" I was like, "I want to be an infantry Marine."
How did you know that? Did you research or?
No, because I knew I was a fighter. Like inside of me, like I fought and survived my whole life at this point. I practically raised myself,
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a fighter. I've always been a survivor, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, I want to be in the infantry. And the recruiter's like, "Well, we don't have no positions open." I'm like, "You're in the middle of a war zone. Like, how are you not?" All right, I go to the Army.
Yeah.
So I walk down act like I'm walking to, next day recruiter calls me, "Hey, we got an opening for infantry." All right. So, hey, the rest was history. I enlisted.
How old were you?
When I enlisted, I was 18. I shipped out. I barely had just turned 19.
Okay. How long did you serve in the Marines?
8.5 years, man.
Shoot. How was that? I mean, it's not every day that I get to dig into somebody's story where they served like a long time.
I mean, it was a challenge, man. I did 5 tours, and so when I got the boot camp, I went to boot camp at Paris Island, where the real Marines come from. Mm-hmm. And I just got to throw that out there.
Okay. Well, because other than that, it's what, Camp Pendleton?
Well, MCRD San Diego, those are Hollywood Marines. We call them Hollywood Marines. No, but for real, man, I went to Paris Island, and I had trouble adapting. I had no respect to authority.
Okay.
I was rebellious. I had no respect to authority. I never had anybody tell me what to do. Even like when I was doing juvenile stuff, like, you know what I mean? I was ratchet, like they say in Cali, right?
Yeah.
And so, in boot camp, I almost got dropped for the failure to adapt. I went on.
They want you to listen. They want you to comply.
So I went on the buddy program with one of my buddies I went to high school with and my cousin. And quick story, I remember one time we were about to do the Crucible, and they had taken out an ingrown toenail, and so I had Firewatch, and then they were like, "Oh, you don't have Firewatch because because of your injury or whatever. So the drill instructor comes in. He's a staff sergeant. He's like, hey, get up, starts yelling at me, knife handing me. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, and I'm trying to explain, and he's like, I don't give a, getting in on me. And then, so I'm about to talk back, and the guide says something slick. So my cousin, he was like a squad leader at the time.
Okay.
So he jumps in it and says something. He's like, why don't you just shut up? And then I remember like the guide was like, oh, that's why your sister's getting banged by a drill instructor. And for what was that, dude? You see a moonbeam, a flashlight just go across, hits him in the face, and we're just fighting the squad leaders, me and him.
Wow.
Because his brother-in-law, my cousin's brother-in-law, was the drill instructor in the other company. So that's why the guide said that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, fast forwarding, I passed boot camp. I passed School of Infantry. I went to School of Infantry in North Carolina, Camp Geiger. And then I was supposed to get stationed in North Carolina. And then last minute, they were like, you're going to the Stomps. And we're like, the Stomps? What's that? They're like, oh, 29 Palms. And
where's that?
It's by Palm Springs, Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley. And Inland Empire, bro. And so the funniest thing is, like, we get to LA, we're at the USO, is where, all the military personnel goes. You catch a ride, whatever. We get on this bus. I fall asleep, I wake up, sun's coming up, and I'm like, I look at my buddy, he's from the Bronx, and I'm like, Taurus, did we get stuck in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie or Hills Have Eyes? And he starts cracking up. And I'm like, where are we?
Middle of nowhere is
the middle of nowhere, dude. And once again, that's where the best infantry Marines come from. When I was in 29 Palms, I was with 3-4, which is the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines. We're the most deployed battalion. I was also 1-7. 1st Marines, 1-7, and then so I did one tour with 1-7. I did 2 tours with 3-4. And a fun fact is, I don't know if you know Kyle Stewart. Guns Up. He used to fight in LFA, and he used to fight in UFC, and now he's in Bellator as a middleweight. Him and I served together in Afghanistan.
No way.
In 2011, yeah.
Did you train back then when you were in the military?
So getting to that with being in 29 Palms, I always had this dream of joining the Marine Corps boxing team. And the only place that had the Marine Corps boxing team was Camp Pendleton or and Camp Lejeune in Camp Lejeune. Now they say Lejeune. So Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, right? So that's why I was stoked that I was like, oh man, I'm getting stationed in North Carolina. I could join the Marine Corps boxing team. Get stuck in 29 Palms, no boxing team. So when it came up to I come to find out after I got stationed in 29 Palms, the Marine Corps had banded the boxing team. Because something about someone died in the ring or something, somebody in law enforcement or a Marine or something like that. I don't really remember. So in the Marine Corps, we have MCMAP, which is the Marine Corps Mixed Martial Arts Program, right? Okay. And so I thought it was so cheesy when I went through boot camp. I was like, when am I ever going to use this? So mind you, when I go I missed my first deployment, and so I jumped on with another company to go on a deployment. And when we get back from that deployment, they're like, well, while we're on that deployment, they're like, your next deployment, you have to be a green belt in MCMAP. And I was like, I was a tan belt.
What is that technically like?
So basically, like, kind of like, okay, like jiu-jitsu, you got white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. Yeah. So it's kind of the same concept. So you got your tan, gray, green, brown, and black, right?
Which is military, like.
Well, yeah, military martial arts, right? Like combatives in the army, Okay. That's what we know it as when we do jiu-jitsu, right? Because we have a bunch of combative instructors, right? And so I was a tan belt, man. I hated MCMAP. Like, I saw but But then I don't know, out of nowhere, my buddy Giggenbach from 17 was like, hey man, you got to try this MMA stuff. Him and one of our Doc Wilson, he's also a fighter out of Florida. And he goes, hey, you got to try this. And, you know, right across the street from our barracks, you know, this is where the Semper Fight team in the Marine Corps got established, you know. And he goes, yeah, and I'm like, hey, I'm not all about that hugging on the ground. Because I grew up with boxing, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's what a lot of people say, though.
I grew up watching Trinidad, Miguel Cotto, Ivan Calderon, you know, Bernard Hopkins, like all the old school dudes, you know what I'm saying? And this MMA stuff was like new to me. I never really watched it on Spike TV. And so long story short, I start to love McMath. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like one of those things. This is where discipline comes in, right?
Doing something you don't want to do.
Doing something that you don't want to do,
and
to learn to love it. And that's what I did, man. I never thought that I would be, you know, a brown belt in the mixed martial arts program. I had planned on being a black belt, trying to go to, you know, Virginia to get my red stripe instructor tab. But yeah, I became a brown belt, and, you know, like I said, the rest was history. And then, you know, fast forwarding it, because I know we're stuck in like my first 4 years of the Marine Corps. So after my last tour to Afghan, you know, I got back in late 2011. You know, before that deployment, I had met my wife. You know, and dude, that's a story in itself. And so it was like a Dear John story without the Dear John letter. So I met my wife at a club.
How old were you?
I barely turned 21. I want to say I barely turned 21. Yeah. And so, or I was barely turning 22. One of those two. Yeah, I think it was barely turning 22, because I got married at 23. So I met her at the club, and, you know, I was in my Daddy Yankee phase. You know, I had the blazer, the iced out chain, glasses, tight, you know, Marine Corps fade. And yeah, dude, we share this all the time, so I know she won't be embarrassed, but I was supposed to be her one night stand.
Oh, wow.
And, you know,
in her eyes, right?
In her eyes, yeah. So her friends didn't want to let me leave with her, and I ended up leaving. And then she ended up texting me, and she was like, hey, come to my house. And so I stop at the store. I get a 24-pack of Pacifico, and I show up, knock on the door, and she's like, the first thing she said, she was like, you were listening to me. You brought my favorite beer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we get to talking, whatever, whatnot, and I told her, I was like, look, you're different. I could tell you're different. I was raised around a bunch of girls, so I have respect for women. Like, I don't expect nothing from you. And, you know, that
set the tone.
You know what I'm saying? So then, long story short, next day, I hit her back up. It's 4th of July weekend, right? And she goes, she tells her friend, why is he calling me? He's supposed to be a woman. She was like, I felt dirty, And I mean, she had a hard life too, you know. And so, yeah, the rest was history. And then I ended up dropping the ball, and I was like, yeah, I'm deploying in a couple of days. I'm going back to Afghanistan. And she's like, what? And
oh, shoot.
Yeah, and I cut ties. We were supposed to meet up before I left. Nothing, dude. Nothing. I didn't, no email, no phone call, nothing. I was out there. And I didn't even think about her. I had so many close calls on that deployment, but for some reason I knew I was coming back for a reason. I don't know. Every time I was on post, you know, that's when you're like manning a gun and you're making sure nobody overruns your patrol base or your overwatch. And
how long was each deployment, by the way?
So deployments are 6 months in the Marine Corps. It's not like the Army. Army does about 12. So I guess they have like a break in between. But Marine Corps, we do 6 to 7 months. It just depends what are you doing, whether you're doing a UDP, MU, or a combat deployment. And so I was a combat replacement for that deployment. And so I go, and then I come back, and then I remember 11/11/11, bro. November 11, 2011, on Veterans Day. I'm out with the boys at the club, right? Guess who I run into?
Your soon-to-be wife?
My soon-to-be wife, dude. And it was like in the movies. The smoke came about, like the fog machine, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's you, you're back." And dude, the rest was history. A couple months later, I proposed. Like 2 months later, we were married.
Dang, this all happened pretty fast.
Yeah, everything happened really, really fast. My wife's from Woodlake. She was born in LA, raised in Woodlake, and she was out in San Diego doing her undergrad and master's at SDSU.
Okay.
And so, fast forwarding it to why I got out. So I was on my last deployment. She was pregnant with my firstborn, my daughter Naya, and dude, like, I almost didn't make it to her birth because we almost got extended. I was in Okinawa, Japan, doing a Marine Expeditionary Unit task over there with the 31st MEU, and they were like telling us, hey, we're probably gonna get extended because there was like a tsunami or something. I don't really remember what was going on. And then so finally I get back on time, and then I happen to come back the day my wife is graduating with her master's, and she rushes back, dude. She rushes back to meet me at my homecoming.
Oh, wow.
Like, she's like...
Pregnant.
I got back in May and my daughter was due in June. So early May I got back. My daughter was born in June, But my whole world changed, man. My whole world changed because 5 days later, my dad passed away. And that changed my world even more. I became a new parent. I was up for re-enlistment. And then my dad passed away. And my whole world turned. And then during that time, my mom was at my house with me. She came and watched my daughter be born, And I remember I was grilling for my mom, and my brother-in-law had called me, and I was like, hey, don't play like that. And then I broke down, and my mom was like, what's going on? And then I gave my mom the phone, and my mom just went hysterical. And and God bless my wife's heart, man. She understood. She told me I had to go. I was just worried because here she is with a newborn, and I'm gonna leave her for X amount of days, And then it was also stressful because I'm a new parent. My sisters don't, they don't have careers like they didn't have a career like I do. My mom my mom never worked, So here comes little brother to the rescue, and it was stressful. I paid for the funeral,
How that goes.
Yeah, so I went out there. It was hard. It was hard, And finally, I took his ashes to Puerto Rico, and when I got back, I had to come back to being a Marine. So
how did your wife take that, like the transition, and during that period of time? Because I know the family dynamic plays a lot.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know until later down the road that she was going through postpartum depression.
When you were gone?
No, like when I got back, and the following months to come, like I didn't know she was going through postpartum depression. And mind you, she's still doing her master's program because it was a 4-year program. With a newborn, I'm like dealing with my daddy issues, my mommy issues, and I got to go back to being a Marine. I'm up for re-enlistment, and I was going to re-enlist, but I felt like I felt betrayed by the Marine Corps, And this is something that I really don't talk about because I used to be that guy that used to be like, oh, stop pointing fingers at the Marine Corps, it's your own fault. But then at the tail end, I started understanding why some people, you know, especially us Marines that put in 110% every single day, day in, day out. You know, everybody in my unit knew me because I was Sergeant Cruz. Sergeant Cruz was humble. Sergeant Cruz could get along. You could get along with. Is either I had the attitude like you either like me, you don't. It's just business. You know what I mean? It's nothing. It's you know, it's you're a Marine. You're an infantry Marine. You know what I mean? Like dudes could die on the battlefield from one mistake. So I took being a Marine and being a grunt seriously. You know,
like the attitude.
Yeah, I had the discipline. I carried myself good. I was that Marine that pressed his hat, his camis. Like I always wanted to look good whenever I wasn't in the field, you know. And I was fortunate enough during that time to have the best leadership out of my years of being in the Marine Corps. You know, I had my gunny, my first sergeant, my captain, you know, my XO, my sergeant major, my battalion commander. Like they were awesome, supportive, you know what I mean? And so when I got back, my first sergeant was like, you know what, I'm not gonna send you a sergeant's course.
What's that?
So sergeant's course is like, it's a leadership course that you have to take in order to get the next rank. And so he was like, you're not going to sergeant's course. You're not going to be able to focus, you know? And then he was like, you know what I'm going to do for you? I'm going to have you run the battalion corporal's course. So I ended up being a faculty member of our battalion corporal's course, which is another leadership course before you become a sergeant, right? Okay. So when I was there, I led, you know, the physical activities. I led a couple classes and stuff like that. You know, I was pretty much like a squad leader for corporal's course. And so like I mentioned before, I was up for re-enlistment. So everybody was on a HIS list. So what a HIS list is like the Marine Corps is going to send you where you're going to go.
And that's it?
And that's it. And so I was the only sergeant in the battalion that didn't get HISted. But they had given me orders to go back to Paris Island to be a primary marksman instructor, which is a PMI. And I said the only time I would go back to Paris Island is if I was a drill instructor. And that's what I wanted to do. I had my heart set on, I didn't want to be a recruiter. I didn't want to go to School of Infantry or MCT. I wanted to be a drill instructor, you know, because I remember how impactful my drill instructors were with me, you know. And
you wanted to return the favor.
Exactly. And not only that, during that time, I got out late 2016, and during that time, like, there was a lot of drama with hazing. Like, the Marine Corps was getting soft. I mean, I hear my buddies all the time now. They're like, I can't wait to get out. I'm like, dude, you got like 4 or 5 more years left. Hang in there. Don't make the mistake I made. You know what I mean? I mean, now today I'm content. Like before I had a lot of issues with like, did I make the right choice? And
like exiting,
yeah. And I wanted to be a lifer. Everybody told me I was going to be a lifer. They said I was going to do more than 20 years because I was that dedicated to being a Marine. Till this day, I'm proud of being a Marine, because the Marine Corps didn't make me who I am today. It molded me into the man I am today. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to be a drill instructor. I don't know. So there's this thing called a monitor, and he's basically the guy that calls the shots where you're gonna go, right? Your O3 monitor. And I remember my chain of command fought for me to get orders to be a drill instructor, and then I got so tired of it. I was like, what's this dude's issue? I was like,
because they weren't giving it to you.
Yeah,
sounds like.
And I was like, I even had other Marine want to trade me orders, and he said no. And so, yeah, I was done. That was the end point. I was like, I'm done. I'm getting out. So I pursued that, and my sergeant major, he was like, just stay. I'll get you to stay with us. I was like, Sergeant Major, I'm burnt out. I've done 5 deployments. I'm ready to go do something different and then come back to the fleet. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, but you're in the below zone. I was in the below zone to become a staff sergeant at E6, and that didn't even hold me back, bro. I started looking into LAPD, San Diego PD. I even started my own painting company in San Diego before we came out here.
So you were stationed in San Diego?
I was stationed in Pelton after 29 Palms.
Okay.
So after I got back from Afghanistan, I got orders at 2-4, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, out of Camp Mateo and Camp Pendleton. And I did 2 tours with them, and I loved that unit. I was a boat company. I became a Marine Raider. Like, I was that Marine that every school you wanted to send someone, I raised my hand and I was like, send me, I'll go. I always wanted to go to different.
So you were like the student that everybody wanted, or like the teammate, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I was good. I could say that I had a pretty good reputation. I made mistakes too. That I could have, looking back, I could have done better, but what can you do dreading on the past, what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. You just take that and move forward with it.
So, and then I finally get out of the Marine Corps in 2016, and, my wife goes, hey, I got an internship in Orosi Cutler. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I want to.
And you're in San Diego.
I want to move back home, and I didn't blame her. Cost of living in San Diego, it sucks. Yep. And then not only that, like, I was getting out.
And you had no idea what the valley was like, right? You had not moved.
No, I did. I came out here several times, like while we were dating and when we were first married. So I knew Vice. I liked it from the get-go because it reminded me of 29 Palms, just not the desert. It's agriculture, more green. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to get out the city life. I grew up in the city life. I was raised in the city life.
And San Diego's city life too.
Yeah, and so I wanted to get out the city life, and she had an opportunity to do her internship, and we had this big plan. So we moved out here. It was rough, man. My transition was rough. I couldn't get a job to save my life. That's when I found out about being overqualified.
Oh, shoot.
And so I ended up getting a job, only lasted like 2-3 months. And that's when I decided to take advantage of my GI Bill and go to college. So I went to COS first. For my AA, and then I transferred to University of Phoenix, where I got my bachelor's degree in 2020.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. And then
it's a different type of dedication for sure. Huh?
Oh yeah. Well, I even went to a master's. I'm like 8 classes away from getting my master's degree.
That's I applaud you for that, bro. That's dedication. Thanks, in and of itself.
Thanks, man. So yeah, and then when I got out, I had a lot of, everybody nowadays, they talk about mental health and PTSD, and, I'm not ashamed of it.
It needs to be talked about, I think. What would you say?
It definitely does. It definitely does. Like, I don't know if you know the UFC fighter, Patty. He just fought this past weekend.
With the bull?
Yeah, and so he mentioned that we're stuck in the stigma. Yeah, we're stuck in the stigma. You know what I mean? It's 2022, man.
Right.
We're about to be in 2023. Like, talk to someone, man.
You should be able to talk to
someone. And I was in that dark place, man. Like, I told you before, I'm not embarrassed to say it. 5 years ago, I almost took my life away because I was rock bottom, man. I was going through a divorce. My wife and I were split. I was in the bouncer club scene.
How far was this from you getting out?
I was only out for a year, man, and I couldn't.
So after school, after you graduated,
I was still in school. So I was a functioning alcoholic.
Okay.
So yeah, so the Marine Corps, I'm not blaming on the Marine Corps, but that's when I started drinking. Because remember, I said I try to stay away from alcohol. Correct, you know what I mean? And so that's what got me drinking, and I was honestly, man, the only time I wasn't drunk was when I had my baby girl. When I had daddy duties, that was the only time I wasn't drunk. And it almost got to a point where I would hit up my wife and be like, oh, I can't watch her today, because I already knew that I had a couple beers in, and I wasn't, you know what I mean? And like, it just hurt. It hurt, and I was done. I was defeated. I had no family here. You know, I had nothing, dude. I felt like I had nothing, you know. And one day I popped some pills, and you know, my daughter saved my life. She was like, want to say she was about 2 years old, because she was 2015, 27, yeah, 2 years old. And I vividly remember I was in the bathroom and I was doing this, and I told my wife I couldn't do it no more. And mind you, I was living in a sheriff's house. That was my roommate. My roommate was a sheriff, you know what I'm saying? And I told her, I was like, I can't do it anymore, through a voice message. And I remember I got a message back, and it was my daughter's voice.
Man, that's powerful.
And the next morning, she came rushing, and you know, we fixed things. We began to seek spiritual guidance, counseling. You know, I started going to counseling in Fresno for combat veterans, marriage counseling. Another thing that helped me was this organization that I'm a part of, a Combat Veterans Hope, also known as ACVH. You know, my brother Norby, my brother George, and you know, my old supervisor Ashley Martinez, like, you know, they helped me through it. You know, the transition, and you know, we talked about my testimony. You know, we had a Christian media organization come out to Cali from Texas to record our testimony, and you know, that was one of the things. My wife didn't understand what I was dealing with, the trauma of growing up, the trauma of being in combat, the routine that I got stripped away from me. You know what I'm saying? Because I couldn't function in the civilian world because of, you know, I couldn't get a job because I was overqualified or underqualified.
Well, for me, that makes total sense. I mean, you couple all of the things that you've been through, the military, you have the structure, something that you immediately jumped into right after the street life. So you had the attention and like all of the noise, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Guiding you. And then 100. once you go into like your own thing, you exit, and now you have the peace and quiet and, you know, family life and everything. So I can totally understand why you might have felt that way, because I think like in everybody's life, we all have that like crossroads experience where you're like, where do I go? What do I do?
See, the other piece to it too is like, after every deployment, you change. You ask any Marine, Army, Navy that ever been in a combat tour, even if you spend a year, 4 years, you change. It takes a part of you. And I was that type of Marine. No matter where I was, it was like someone committed suicide or I lost a brother overseas. Hey, snap out of it. We got work to do. We got a mission. So all that hit me when I got out. I had nothing but time to think. It was like being in prison, man. What do prisoners have? Nothing but time. So I had nothing but time to think about all this stuff that I've been through and went through. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so after that, like, I knew it had to be enough. And that's what, you know, my wife is a school psychologist in Fresno County, and she inspired me to pursue my degree in support services, you know. And so that's why I have my degree in, is like social work, right? And because I wanted to understand the DSM-5, you know, I wanted to understand my symptoms, what triggers me, you know what I'm saying? I spent time as a AOD counselor, alcohol and drug counselor here in town. So I wanted to understand, you know, all the stuff that I was going through, all the emotions and everything. I wanted to understand it, and I wanted to pay it forward. Not only for veterans, because we're not the only ones that suffer from trauma. You know, I just talked about, you know, postpartum depression with women. You know, you got rape trauma with male or female. You know, you have addiction. So everyone has their own issues. But so I remember having an argument with my sister, and I was like, you know, I'm different. since little, I knew I was different. And I told her everything I ever been through, I used it to be successful, as fuel to become successful. Where she used all that trauma and to victimize herself and to basically have destructive behavior, you know?
And I think that's important. Sorry to cut you off, but I think that's important because being able to use that in a way to help you grow is completely different than the opposite effect, right? Because it's really easy for anybody to kind of, and I hate to say it, but like to play the victim, because a lot of people use for crutches like that in a way, and I'm not saying anything about family or anything, but in general, most people will use something to kind of like, hey, well, that's why I can't do that, and they'll give up on their dreams, aspirations, and things like that. But I think it's a powerful testament to you as an individual that you used it for good. I mean, because everything is stacked against you in technically, like if you look on paper statistically, right, like the average person wouldn't make it out, but you're a fighter, truly, you know, and you continue to do that. But
yeah, and so yeah, after 8 months with my kids, I was like, man, I'm tapping out. I need to go back to work, because I always work. I told you, since 9 years old, I've been hooking and jabbing, you know? And so
I like that, hooking and jabbing. Yeah.
It's a Marine Corps term.
Okay.
And so yeah, I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going back to work. And then I remember her, like, she was so mad. We bought our first house. You know, we had moved into our new house, and I was always cleaning. And she was like, man, you and your OCD, light bulb. Because before the Marine Corps, I told you I had a full-time job. And that full-time job was, I was housekeeping maintenance for a nursing home.
Okay.
In the Marine Corps, if anybody knows, whether you're in the infantry, whatever MOS you're in, you're a glorified janitor. You know what I mean? You're always police calling, picking up cigarette butts, throwing out trash, cleaning your rooms, you know? And that's why
you're in trouble with the...
Well, no, it's not. It feel, you know, at first I didn't understand it. I thought it was dumb. Obviously, I'm new. I'm a boot.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we get called before we deploy. And I used to be like, but then as I grew as a leader and went into the next ranks and had leadership positions, you know, I understood it created discipline for some, you know, because there's some people that still don't get it. You could be in the Marine Corps, you know, we call them shitbags, you know what I'm saying, that don't make it in the military. But then when they get out, they want to be like, I did this, I did that. But little do you know, they were the ones that slipped through the cracks, you know? And so that's when the light bulb went off, and that's when Rival Cleaning Service came alive.
Okay.
You know, and
what year was this?
This was 2018. So in 2018, I started Rival Cleaning Service. I started with a broom, a vacuum, a mop bucket, right? And within 2-3 months, I had 10 accounts. I told you I'm a hustler.
And you were doing all this at that time yourself?
By myself, while going to college, doing my undergrad, and being a parent, and being a husband.
So quick question, what would you say to anybody that's trying to get started with any business that just has a bunch of excuses, for lack of better words?
Honestly, that's a good question, because, you know, fear, right? Everybody has the fear of failing. Everybody wants to be the next guru, right? I just tell people straight up, if it keeps you up at night, do it. I know a lot of people say that, but I'm being for real. Like, everything I ever done in life, it kept me up.
You're excited about it.
I'm excited about it. I'm losing sleep over it. I'm constantly thinking about it. I pray on it, and doors open up. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I was like, if it keeps you up and you keep constantly thinking about it, there's gonna be naysayers. There's gonna be the negative Nancys. You know, they're gonna be
everything.
They're gonna be every kind of person out there. That there's gonna be people that support you. There's gonna be people that poop on you. You know, and it's because they want to probably do something, but they don't have the courage you have to do something.
Absolutely. I mean, it can be as little as anything, really. It doesn't necessarily need to be a business, but if
No, absolutely.
you
Yeah,
get
100.
anybody that hates on you, it's usually something in your aura, your spirit, or something that you're doing that's like nagging at them because they're not at that level.
Yeah, and that's a good point you make, because I was in the sharpest tool in the shed. I never thought I was gonna go to college. Dude, I'm literally the first generation military, first generation high school graduate, first generation college graduate, first generation homeowner, first generation
Everything.
Legally married. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just consider myself a chain breaker, man. I'm just constantly breaking chains, because you know what, man? I don't want my kids to go to that. I do not want my baby girl and my baby boy to suffer and go through. But don't get it twisted. You know, they live this life. You know, my sister-in-laws, you know, they say my kids are spoiled and they live a good life. But I guarantee if you ever come around my house, you'll see that they work for everything too. Because my wife and I, that's something that we believe in. We're both hustlers. We both work hard for what we got. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So like right now, I'm going on 5 years with this company. You know, there's been highs and lows.
That's a blessing. Congrats, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what they say, 3 to 5 years. Most small businesses only last 3 to 5 years, but here I am still going strong. And little do people know is that I was running a small business while I was working at a federal prison. You know what I'm saying? So it's doable. It's doable. I can't tell you countless times where I got hit and I had to do a 16-hour shift, and then someone calls out and I got to pick up the slack.
Wow. So and again, what would you say for somebody that says they don't have enough time to go start something that they want to do?
You gotta be committed, and that's what we're lacking nowadays is commitment. You know, you gotta be driven. I say, like David Goggins says, and then David Goggins and I say we have a lot in common. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, his dad was an alcoholic. You know, his dad beat him. He was bullied. You know what I'm saying? You find someone that you connect with. The same thing with you know, my mentor Miguel Aguilar from Self Made. You know, me and him click because we have the same story, pretty much the same story. And I always tell people the one thing that I hope to God I don't ever experience is homelessness. You know, that's the only thing I haven't experienced. Knock on wood, right? But I know I'm so driven that if my house was taken from me, everything was taken from under me, I do this with my kids all the time. Close your eyes. What do you see? Nothing. Yeah, tomorrow you can have nothing. So enjoy it now while you can. You know, because I know that I can rebuild because of my character and my work ethic. I'm humble, man.
Isn't it interesting when you finally get to that point of uncertainty, ups and downs, trial, tribulation, failure, shortcomings, and then you're like, I've had what I needed the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Isn't it almost comforting that you're like, you get that epiphany to where you're like, man, God's good. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can rebuild if you need to.
Absolutely, 100. It is perseverance, man, and once again, being driven. Motivation is crap. Motivation is emotion. It comes and goes. You know what I mean? You got to be driven. You got to be willing to fail. You know what I mean? Like, people are so scared of failure. I'm like, I'm gonna fail.
Have you ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki by chance?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he always says, fail faster.
Fail faster.
I like that.
That's one of my favorite books is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep, absolutely.
Always everybody's number one. And then Think Rich, Grow Rich.
Yep.
And, you know, I tell people I'm wealthy. Not wealthy in the sense I got all kinds of money, but I'm wealthy in health. I'm wealthy in family and community.
That's all perspective too, by the way, because most people think in today's age, like, monetary possessions go a long way. Yes, it's important, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we have to eat, survive, put clothes on our back, but to base your life solely on materialistic things and money is obviously, like you just said, you know, you're wealthy in all aspects, not just that one sector. Because what good would it be to be wealthy and have your family life lacking, not being able to spend time with your kids or your wife, etc. Right?
Exactly. You hit it right on the nail, man. Because I remember before I had my daughter, you know, I told you my life changed. I was having a kid, you know, and I was that dude that Armani Exchange, Express, Jordans, Timberlands, like New York swag, all these fitteds. I had more shoes in my closet than my wife. You know, I'm serious. And
well, there's probably a lot of people listening that might be at that place right now.
No,
so.
absolutely. And I tell you right now, man, I ain't scared to go to Target. I ain't scared to go to Costco. You know what I mean?
Facts.
I'm more eager to support a fellow friend in my circle that has a clothing apparel than to go to all these corporate. Exactly. No, for real. I'm keeping 100. I support people that support me. You know what I'm saying? And if you ever see that saying, strangers are going to support you a lot faster than your own family and friends.
Yep.
And that's what I realized. I'm at the point in my life, man. And I'm not trying to be ignorant. I'm not trying to be, you know, this bad person, but you know, I'm just being blunt, man. I've had so many people in my walk of life that I barely know that support me, and you're one of them. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that. Thank you for voicing that.
You're welcome. And you know, my circle consists of people, like-minded people. Like you said earlier, I told you my business, my life, it revolves around core values. If we don't have the same core values, then you know, either you fix it or then, you know, we go our separate ways. It's not because I'm better than you. It's just I have a vision, and I can't reach that vision with distraction.
With people holding you or dragging
back.
And it just goes to show, like they say, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, right? And I'm the same way. It's taken me some time to get to that level of having discernment with people in my circle, with being able to trust different people. Like, I'm sure you've lost friends, family, things, people that you couldn't keep around for that growth, you know, level. But for a lot of people listening, like, it takes a lot to be able to set those boundaries and to be able to walk away from things that are not serving you, if you will, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100. And you know, it's like now currently with the fight game. You know, like you mentioned earlier, I got my fight coming up, and how many people are out there probably saying, oh, you know, he's gonna fight, and what doesn't he do, you know? And those are opinions that I hear, and I'm like Les Brown, your opinion doesn't matter to me, you know what I'm saying?
I love it, because at the end of the day, we're literally the same. Like, a lot of people in my circle are just friends, people that I know. It's crazy because your vibe attracts your tribe, right?
Absolutely.
But these last 6 to 8 months, this year really, I've been meeting more and more and uncovering different things people are doing, right? Like, I've learned about all of the different services that you offer, everything that you do, right?
Yeah.
I like following it, but what you just said, I mean, there's a lot of people, like, when you're doing more than one thing, they're like, oh, they tend to think like, hey, he's better. He thinks he's better than people because he's in this and that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you probably get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, sometimes I get advice from like mentors and stuff, like, you know, oh, you got to focus on one thing. And you know, I listen. I take what I want to take. You know, take what you want to take, and you throw away what you feel like you don't need. But one thing about it is, like, I do all these services, but I've almost perfected each one where I can manage those to do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, once again, the fight game. I fought at heavyweight, you know, almost a year ago. And
it was literally like last August or September, right?
September, yeah. And, you know, right away I knew it. I was like, you know, I felt sluggish. Oh, this is not my weight class. I need to go down in weight, you know? And so I took time off because, you know, I wanted to make sure more than anything that my family was on board, you know what I mean? Because that's a lot for my wife, you know what I'm saying? To support me, you know? And I wrote a post on my fight page a while back, a couple of days ago, and I mentioned that, you know, when you've been through so much pain in your life, man, and when getting punched in the face doesn't faze you, you know, that's a dangerous man. I've been in gunfights. I've been stabbed back home in the East Coast, you know what I'm saying?
Dang.
I've been, you know, hospitalized, you know, and till this day, man, I'm like, yeah, we all have fear. I'd be lying to you if I'd be like, oh, well, I didn't have fear when I got in that cage. You know what I'm saying? We all do. But it takes a different breed, a different kind of individual to step foot into a combat zone.
Right.
And that's what it is a combat zone.
Willingly.
You know what I'm saying? And to get paid peanuts as an amateur, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all start somewhere, and that's where I'm humble, man. I love everybody, man. I love everybody. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to create a legacy. I'm just trying to fill my bucket list. And, you know, I've always knew I wanted to be a fighter as a boxer. But once again, when you do something you don't love, you learn to love it, right? And so I learned to love the fight game, the MMA game, you know? And I'm still learning. I've been, you know, a lot of people don't know, but I've been training on and off for years, you know? And
well, since you say combatives in the military.
Well, yeah, since the military, since the street, I did Kempo karate. Like, you know, I'm not saying I'm this badass, but, you know, I have a lot of experience at my age, you know what I'm saying? I've been through a lot at my age. And, you know, I don't know where my amateur career is gonna go. I don't know. People ask me, my wife asked me, are you trying to go pro? I don't know. It's wherever, you know, the road takes me.
I like that.
I'm living life.
I like that though, because most people, instead of, there's an acronym they say, and you talked about fear, right? And they say you can either face everything and run, or face everything and rise, right? And
100.
I like how you said, you know, I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't fear anything. And that goes back to that acronym. I mean, we all feel the same emotion, but how do you handle that in the presence of it, in that like feeling of like, oh shit, right?
Yeah.
Of, I'm actually going to do this. I mean, sometimes I get that skydiving. It's no comparison, but it's like, dang, I'm really up here. I really did, because I went like a second time, planning on going a third. But
right,
I like how you said that though, because it should make everybody think like, how do I handle fear when in those situations? Do I cower it away, or, you know, how do I do it? You just made me think of myself right now.
You got to hit it head on, man. Look, I'm prior military, I'm prior law enforcement. I still fear when I get pulled over, because I don't know, man. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, or when I'm walking down the street, like, you really think I feel good about having to carry or having a thing? You know, one time someone asked me, they were like, oh, why you carry? And I'm like, well, I carry so I don't have to use it. You know what I'm saying? And then just like someone asked me, oh, why you train mixed martial arts? So I don't have to use it. You know what I'm saying? Because now the discipline behind it is, you know, all the stuff that could get you in trouble. Because now, granted, I'm prior military, prior law enforcement. You know, I'm able to carry. You know, I'm a mixed martial artist, right? Amateur mixed martial artist. I don't want to offend anybody.
No reason to get in trouble, because you're aware, right?
Yeah, you know, but I'm just being real. I'm being blunt. I go out on the street, you know, pull out a weapon or use my hands. Guess what the cop's gonna tell me, man?
Assault what?
Assault with deadly weapon, because I'm a walking weapon.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if I'm like, you know, this big world champ, you know what I'm saying? But I know how to use, you know, my skills. So that person that probably started the confrontation, right? Is gonna use that to their advantage if they find out, oh, he trains, oh, he was this, he was that, you know? And you know that's how it goes.
Yeah. Everybody always tries to use the
you know,
advantage
you know, that's another reason why I left law enforcement, man, is because we have a broken system, you know? And that's another topic, but yeah, man, I'm just living life. You know, thank you for having me, and we'll see what August 13 brings.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's been a pleasure, Alex, having you on, uncovering your story. I know we talked about a lot from your adolescence, growing up, you know, fighting now in the fight game, but before the fight game, you know, you always had that drive, you always had that warrior mentality. I kind of want to open it up really quick for you to talk about anything you think is important for the audience, or anything that you want to support, to shout it out on the Luxic Vue podcast here today. Anything that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, you know, going back to business, the one thing I can say about business is if you're gonna go into business, like, get a mentor, you know? Have a mentor, have a coach in your specific industry, someone that is a subject matter expert, because, you know, there's a lot into wearing all these hats and running a small business, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I was just having that conversation with my assistant today in the car. He's like, bro, how do you do everything? I don't know how you manage your Airbnbs. And then enough about me, but for you too, you do all kinds of stuff too. And having a mentor is absolutely important, because how has it helped you? We'll tap into that real quick.
It's helped me a lot. I have several mentors. Like I mentioned before, I have, you know, Miguel Aguilar from Selfmade. I got, you know, George Velasquez from Battle Stripes Apparel. My coaches are my mentors. You know, my head coach, Mark Dela Cruz. Ruben Quellar, and then
shout out Ruben and Mark.
And Steve Ramirez, you know,
shout out Steve.
They're all my mentors. And once again, like, you know, I fell in love with with mixed martial arts, and being at Vitruvian is
the culture,
the camaraderie, feeling welcome. You
Absolutely.
know, people are not there to break you. You know, there's no egos. Not saying that there's no other good gyms out here in Visalia or in Fresno. But you know where your home is. You when you get that good vibe and you start vibing with people, you know, I always say this, we're more than training partners. We're family, you know.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I mean that with my heart, Vitruvian. I mean that with my heart. And on the other aspect of mental health, like till this day, I go to counseling, man. I think those are the two biggest important things. If you're trying to do business or whatever career path you decide to do, right? And then mental health. Like I said, I've been going to counseling now 5 years. I go twice a month, you know what I mean? Church is not for everybody. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you need to read the Bible. I do have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you know, but that's me. It's not for everybody, you know. I don't push it on anybody. But, you know, those are the big two things. Like if you, in business, mentor, mental health, you need a mentor. You need that sponsor. Going back to the AA stuff and AOD stuff, alcohol and drug counselor thing. You know, have a sponsor. You know what I'm saying? And once again, shout out to all my sponsors that support me for this upcoming fight. You know, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody supporting me on this journey. You know, can't wait to see you guys out there screaming Team Cruz.
If you need tickets, contact us. This interview should drop like the week before, so we definitely need to get you guys some tickets. Alex, like I said, I appreciate you carving out the time to make this thing happen. Like I said, it did take quite some time to schedule, but I believe in divine timing. I don't like to rush anything.
Absolutely.
I don't like anything to feel forced, and I feel like this interview, the way everything came out, man, I'm glad we waited, because what better yet? I mean, you have a fight coming up. It's more time to get you that exposure. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to highlight
absolutely.
you.
I appreciate you having me.
But with all that being said, anything else you might want to throw out there? Again, shout out Vitruvian. I'm going to second that, though. I told Mark the same exact thing that you said. I mean, I had no mixed martial arts experience when I first started. So like going in, feeling comfortable was like a number one thing for me. So I like that you said that. Shout out Vitruvian. But any last?
I just want to shout out, you know, my family back east up in New York, Jersey City. I love you guys, miss you guys. I need to make my rounds home again. I know, and just stay up. I appreciate everybody's support out there.
Awesome. Well, with all of that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Luxic Vue podcast. This is Steph the Pharaoh. We're out. Remember, doubt kills, embrace now, and live your legacy.